here. Gonna ask a couple questions. I mean, this film, there was a short version. It's been quite the journey. Can you take us both back to the beginning and through the process of deciding to take a short to a feature?
Yeah, so the short played here in 2017, and that was where we first met Jess and Pedro, and I think I can say we all really just loved them and loved Jess's energy, and at the end of it, we were like, do you want to like see if you go to the Olympics? Like, should we follow you? And she was like, yes, like I'm gonna go. So like, yes, you should follow me. And that's kind of where it started. And I love the Up series. And so I'd always thought about doing something that uses time. And I didn't feel like we had seen that with an athlete. You often see the final product. So that was where we started with this idea of what makes a champion, the good days, the bad days, the stuff no one sees to get to that Olympic dream. And we had questions that we asked every year, just like the Up series. And then, obviously things took a surprising turn.
And another one as we're standing here, another surprising turn. We could bring the lights back up, guys, if you're up there. With that being said, mentioning the intimacy of this is a relationship you have to build over a long time after the short. Even before everything changed, we know with Jess's health, you're in the gyms, you're in the time with dad, and like, thank you. How were those moments? And I mean, speaking from the cinematographer being in the room, and also the time spent in building that relationship, like what changed from the first time when she's like, yeah, it's in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years later?
I can let everybody kind of chime in, but I think in general it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun on the road with them. I think the thing that changed was as she got older, I noticed that like she kind of didn't want us there as much. And so there were definitely moments like when she wins, when she's like 13, she like just wanted to go swim in the pool. And so like to get her to like stop and do like an interview, she was like, I'll do 2 questions and then I'm leaving. We have to go swimming. I was like, okay, sure. But I think in general, not as much changed as I think we thought it would.
Yeah, they definitely felt like, very close friends or family. We have maybe way too many stories of there's like one time Jess challenged me to run a mile because she didn't think I could do it under like 7 minutes. And so it was like a lot of goading, it's like something you do with, your friend or Emily and I were talking about it because it took so long. Like, we went through breakups, we've had like career changes, we've done like a lot of things, but they've been there for us, this whole time. And even Pedro, when I was, we're in a studio and he's like, who's this new girl you're seeing? Like, you gotta run her by me, like. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Jess and Pedro have such a special relationship, and their rapport on camera was so natural. And as a camera person, you're always kind of searching for just something that feels real. And in that way, they made it really easy for us because they were always giving us something good. Like just really incredible interactions as like a daughter-father relationship.
Definitely. I mean, you sought out to make a film about time and change through the lens of an athlete, but then the film obviously took a complete turn. How did you guys decide to change your approach? What did you have to do in the edit? I don't know how far along you were with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Katie handle some of this because it's her credit that the film is what it is in many ways as the editor. But when Jess got her diagnosis, I think it's safe to say that we were all a mess. There was a lot of crying. I know I cried a lot. And I had a conversation with Pedro one day, and he was like, Jess is asking me, when are we going to film again? And I don't know what to tell her. And I was like, well, what do you want? And he was like, I don't know. I guess I'll ask what she wants. And that was always a thing. We always checked in with her to make sure she still wanted to be a part of this. Every year we would kind of be like, you cool with us doing this still? And she would say yes. And so when she said she wanted to keep filming after her diagnosis, it was important that we listen and hear what that meant. And I think to Katie's credit, she did a really wonderful job with, we'll call it the third act, where, I mean, this is what Jess wanted to say. And she's the reason we made the film. She's the reason we finished the film. I think we were definitely in a place of shock, grief, sadness. Her health comes first. Our movie was not important. But to Pedro's point, We'd been a constant part of her life at that point for 5 years. And he wanted her to continue to feel normal. He did not want her to suddenly get a diagnosis and be a cancer kid and lose all of the aspects of her life. And you see it when she goes to the gym, and us being in the gym with her was part of that. So yes, but I'll let Katie kind of talk to that, because we were editing before that with a very different structure in mind.
Yeah, we did. We had, we had cut almost all the way up until she went to nationals, where she was going to either qualify for the junior Olympic team or not. So we had a very different film in mind, I think, and structurally it was completely different. It was very nonlinear and sort of bouncing back and forth and comparing and contrasting sort of, the lightness of her younger years with the sort of more seriousness of her later years. And then, when this happened, we had to really stop down and sort of rethink, okay, how is the best way for the audience to experience this story? And we arrived at where we did, but it was a lot of rethinking, because suddenly we were telling a different story.
I wanted to talk about, I guess, the boxing community. You guys are spending a lot of time with other people in the space, coaches and trainers and all that. What's been the support from them for Jess and Pedro? We see a little bit in the epilogue, but what was that like when, I guess, everyone else learned what was going on?
I mean, I think, she says that she has a family in the gym and out of the gym, and I think that stayed true, and it was a really beautiful thing to see. I think we think of boxing as a pretty brutal sport, and the irony is, the people that I met along the way and the people you see in the film, like Oscar, who's one of the coaches, he's super gentle. He's the one who tells her, it's an experience, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're here, you're bonding with your dad, and those are really beautiful things to hear from these men who you thought would be go win, kill the other person, whatever. And it wasn't the case at all. And it's been really wonderful to see how they've been, they love the film. And so that's a huge relief to have that feedback that they love it, that they feel well represented. And then they've also continued to, support the Silvas as much as they can. I know that when she first got sick, the boxing community did some fundraisers through Make-A-Wish. She's been able to go see boxing matches, and she still loves boxing. I mean, she watches it all the time. Her friend Manny, who's in our film, is qualified for the Junior Olympics, so we're cheering him on. But yeah.
And then how are they doing?
So I'm happy to say that Jess is still fighting. She's still with us. She's exceeded all expectations from, that the doctors gave her. With that said, it's been a fight. It's been a struggle. I never want to minimize what this girl has been through. She's had 7 brain surgeries, and that's just brain surgeries. She's had other surgeries. She's done experimental treatments. But she and her dad, like I said, they're fighters. They continue to fight. And so they always ask for prayers, thoughts, vibes, whatever you believe in, anything positive, send it their way. If you want to make a donation, they encourage brain cancer research. It's very underfunded. People don't know about it as much. It's become kind of a secondary mission of our film to raise awareness around brain cancer. We have Lung Cancer Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness. We don't have brain cancer. That's a problem, especially because it affects so many kids. And I think, the last thing is Pedro always hopes that this inspires people to become researchers and doctors, especially when I show it to younger audiences. That he says, we have enough boxers, we have enough athletes. Go change a life by being a doctor or researcher.
Definitely. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions before I would love to have them have the last word. So if there's any questions in the audience. Let's go here. Sir, yes. Yes, you.
Her dad didn't give her the full diagnosis, and clearly you must have known it early on. How did you feel about sort of having that information and filming her when she wasn't fully aware of what the outcome might be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think, what's interesting about Jess and Pedro is that they try to protect each other. I think you see that. And while Jess maybe didn't know the full scope of it, I think she really knew. There's a part in the end where she says, I don't care if people forget me, as long as my family remembers me. And to me, that always said that she knew how serious this was, but she was protecting her dad. And then as a filmmaker, I spent so much time with Pedro and Jess. They have become family, friends. I don't know what else to call them. I love them very deeply. And I would never not trust Pedro's judgment as a parent. It's not my place to judge or interfere. And so if that was how he felt, to me, that's it. End of conversation.
Fair enough. Yes, here.
Pedro in particular seemed to want to get the message out there as much as possible. So are you still filming them, and or do you want to? Did they want to?
Yeah, another good question. So when they were at Memorial Sloan Kettering recently, Ben and I went to visit, and so did Paul. And we saw them and we chatted, and he really wants to do something that raises awareness. It's almost like I'll call it like a mini doc series. And so we've been talking about how to do that. We've just started to put a treatment together. We are hoping to do something that's outside of that. And the funny thing is, Pedro hated filming. He hated being on camera, even though he's so wonderful. And so I told him, I was like, well, if we were gonna do this, like, you would have to be on camera. And he was like, I'll do it. Like, he's so on board. So hopefully we are able to do something that, again, goes a little bit further than what we do in the film.
Got time for one more. Yes, miss, here.
How did you find Jesszilla originally? And like, what, obviously she's like you're drawn to her. But how did you find her, and how do you find your subjects that cause you to want to make a film about that?
That's a good question. So I had wanted to do something on a woman in a combat sport, and I just had this sort of like little idea. And when I was thinking about things, I saw a local news article where Jess was being held up with the belt, and she was like 8 years old. And I thought, like, who is this kid? So I was asked to put in touch with her parent through the person who wrote the article. And it was really important that I didn't follow like a helicopter parent. And so I wanted to meet them first, and I went to the gym, and I will never forget, like, Jess was like wailing on a bag, and Pedro was like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, we spoke on the phone. Yeah, like, that's Jess. Like, she's doing her workout. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, this man is so along for the ride. He's like a deer in the headlights, and this little girl is a firecracker. And so it just clicked, but like we had months of talking about like how I wanted to make sure this was positive for Jess. So we had months of talking, like, could you handle the attention? What happens if there's criticism? We went through all of those conversations before we ever picked up a camera. So
I think there's one here. Yeah, we could.
Growth, is a big theme, figuratively and literally, throughout the film. But for yourselves as creators, how did you feel yourself grow, spending such a long time with the subjects, obviously the radical change that had to come about, what are some reflections that you have about your own growth?
it's a great question. I think the thing that this has made me think about a lot is ethics in documentary. Obviously, we've had an amazing run, but it's a really complicated feeling because I love these people, and they're people to me. They're not characters. And it's been hard to understand me benefiting in a way, like me getting accolades and going to these amazing festivals and being able to share it with you all, and then also having a little girl I care about who is sick. And so I think it's really made me look in the mirror as a creative and a filmmaker and start asking questions about the craft and how I feel. And to be clear, I feel great about our movie. I feel good about our decisions we made, but it's been something that I think has really pushed me in a way I never expected. Do you guys want to?
Yeah, I'd say the trust in your environment, the people around you, has been huge. Before as a producer, it's like you're managing line items and days, and it becomes really logistics heavy. But I think through the 7-year journey, and thanks to a lot of people here as well, like we just surrounded ourselves with amazing people, amazing crew, and the Silvas were amazing collaborators and not just subjects. So is letting people in, being vulnerable with them, and creating something together.
Well, I guess just to speak on what Emily said a little bit is, as a filmmaker, you kind of always continue to wrestle with the ethics of what you're making, and things shift constantly and they reframe as things get released and put out into the world. But I found, at least with this movie, there is like a duality to it. It means different things to everybody, and it means something different to Pedro and Jess than it does to us. So it's something that I feel like they love the movie very much.
They do love the movie.
And they talk about it a lot, and I think it will mean a lot to them, forever, I guess.
I think for me, it was funny because the timeline, these guys got to experience things in real time. And by the time I got onto the project, they had already been shooting for 5 years. And so I sort of experienced all of this media in compressed time, and it was almost as though I was watching her grow up before my eyes. And so it was a really different sort of experience. And then certainly, I become so invested with telling these people's stories, and I want to do right by them. And then this huge tragedy happens. And I think it was, definitely the ethical theme was, I think, really big for all of us. And I credit Emily with really putting it in the hands of Jess and Pedro to say, what do you guys want to do? How do you want to end this film? The fact that 6 years ago you asked her, Jess, if you were directing this film, how would it start? And then to have that come full circle back at the end, and they are telling the story. We're helping, but to give the power to them, I thought was really powerful for me to learn as an editor.
Emily would love to give you the last word here, if anything you want to say.
Yeah, if you enjoyed it, tell your friends and family. We are going to be on Doc NYC's virtual film catalog, so it can be watched online. Please give us a rating on Letterboxd. And yeah, I thank you guys for coming out and following us. If you want more updates on our film, it's Jesszilla the film on Instagram and also online. And we're hoping to have some good news about distribution in the future, so you can hopefully tell your friends and family, like, hey, it's on this amazing streaming platform.
Awesome. Give them a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. And vote for the film. It's eligible for the Audience Award as well, so you can vote for it online and in the lobby with the QR code.
Yes, please vote. The Audience Awards mean things to us, so please vote.